Alright, welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the Arks of Omen Grand Tournament Pack. And in case you can't tell, I am excited. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring this video. More on that later. So just in time for Christmas, we get the official announcement: Arks of Omen Grand Tournament Pack, a new detachment for the next season of Warhammer 40,000. Sinister schemes of Abaddon and Vashtor are affecting more than just this galaxy. They're also upending match play seen for 2023. Next year, the Arks of Omen Grand Tournament Mission Pack arrives. With it comes updated missions, new secondary objectives, and major changes to how you'll muster and deploy your forces. So, sounds cool. Nice little fresh mix-up. There's a little video you can watch, but we're going to take a look at the full article. So, obviously, some super cool art. Some of the brand new stuff with Vashtor in it. Very exciting. Definitely looking forward to getting my hands on this one. The biggest changes center around the new Arks of Omen detachment. This massive combined arms coalition gives you unprecedented flexibility when building your army. It has to be seen to be believed. Alright, so this is the Arks of Omen detachment. Command point cost 0 command points. Restriction: all units must be from the same faction, and the faction cannot be Imperium, Chaos, Eldari, or Tyranids. This detachment cannot include any understrength units. Command benefits: none. So it costs 0 command points, but it also refunds you 0 command points if your leader is in it. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so we have one, obviously compulsory choices are in red, and then optional choices in kind of gray. So we have one HQ compulsory. If this detachment is an Imperial Knight or Chaos Knight detachment, it does not require this compulsory slot. So obviously you don't need an HQ if you're playing a Knight detachment. So then the required compulsory choices are just 3 of one of your selections, either troops, elites, fast attack, heavy support, or lords of war. So pretty much encompasses all of the previous detachments in one. And then for your optional choices, we have 0 to 9 troops. So total, you have 0 to 12 troops. Elites, you have 0 to 3. Total, you have 0 to 6. Well, depending how you're building this. Fast attack, 0 to 6. Heavy support would be 0 to 6. Lord of war would be 0 to 3 plus the potential 3 you can get up here. So again, 0 to 6. So HQs, you have 0 to 3 additional. So it's going to be 1 to 4. Unless you're playing knights, in which case you don't need any. And then flyers, still 0 to 2. Fortifications, 0 to 3. So basically, they took everything, mashed it up into one big selection. And then elites, we have character units only. 0 to 3. And then dedicated transports can include 1 for each infantry unit taken. So I do actually really like the way this is laid out, because basically everybody can just take this detachment. And then if somehow you can't build exactly what you want out of this detachment, which is probably going to be very uncommon, you can then, it sounds like, pay extra command points for a traditional detachment to go on top of this. So we'll have to see. But the overall breakdown of this and my overall first impressions, I have to say, is really good. I think the biggest change in the entire thing is probably the elites character units also. Because oftentimes you would see someone taking a detachment with 6 elites in it, and then sometimes another detachment with more elites in it, or limiting themselves because of the characters getting in the way of their actual elites choices. So I do really like this. I'm specifically focusing on elites because I think that's typically the one that people run into, like the elite slots kind of cannibalizing each other. But even with some of the new codexes like Tyranids and stuff like that, now if you take like a Neurothrope, you get bonuses to your Zoanthropes, or like vice versa. If you have like for each Farseer in your army, you can include a Warlock unit for Eldari without taking up a detachment. So a lot of this stuff is kind of getting like mashed in here as well. But overall, I really like this new detachment. And I think probably, like, rough estimate, like 90 to 95% of people will probably just be taking one single Arks of Omen detachment. I think the biggest limiting factor is probably going to be stuff like Tau Commanders or Hive Tyrants or something like that, where you need to take a second detachment so you can get a second one of them. But I really, really like the overall setup here. There's a lot to unpack here. First, there are the compulsory slots. Rather than picking 1 or more detachments from the core book, each of which were different roles to fill. Each of which feature different roles to fill. The new detachment simply lets you pick one of 5 unit types to make up your compulsory choices. Once you've picked out a HQ choice and loaded up on 3 units of the same battlefield role, which I think every army everyone has ever played is going to have that. Whether you're troops, elites, fast attack, heavy support, or even lords of war, you're free to flood your roster with extra squads of any type. This detachment is incredibly flexible and will work for all factions, though there will be a couple of specific additional rules to allow for unusual armies like Drukhari and Dark Angel forces that would previously have usually been made up of multiple smaller detachments. It's great news for armies that rely on Vanguard, Outrider, or Spearhead detachments to maximize particular battlefield roles, as they'll now be able to take more of almost everything else alongside their preferred units. You'll even get some extra elite slots specifically for character units, so Crucial, Apothecary, Orc Mech, or Sisters Dogmata won't steal space from your big hitters. The Arks of Omen detachment costs 0 command points, so it doesn't need to refund any command points for having your Warlord in it. The flexible formation means no more juggling multiple detachments, just build one. Depleting your precious command point reserves to field varied and thematic armies is a thing of the past. So that is interesting. I can't quite tell the way this is worded if you still have access to the regular detachments or if this is just an all-encompassing and that's it. Like you get one Arks of Omen detachment and that's it. Because otherwise, you could take the Arks of Omen detachment for free and then you could take a regular detachment, put your leader in that, pay the command points, but then also get the command points back. So I'm not sure that's the intention of theirs. So I imagine there's probably some kind of rule or stipulation basically saying like, hey, you're only allowed to have this one all-encompassing detachment. That's what I'm guessing. Because otherwise, I don't see any actual restrictions here. I don't see any other restrictions here that would say specifically as far as what we've seen in this article so far that say you can only have one Arks of Omen detachment. So if there's no command point cost and nothing gets refunded by having your leader in it, what is to stop you from just taking 2 Arks of Omen detachments? And then all you really need is 1 HQ, 3 of any specific one of these, and then a second detachment with 1 HQ and 3 of any one of these. Most people's armies already consist of 3 troops, at least 2 HQs, and then probably like 3 elites, 3 fast attack, or something along those lines. So I'm assuming this detachment will be limited to 0 to 1. Possibly even just straight up compulsory 1, and then other detachments may have some further limitations on them to stop you from essentially getting the best of both worlds. That's just my speculation. I don't know. Maybe it will be answered further down in the article. One size fits all solutions means every army can now include Lords of War and fortifications at no extra cost. So that's really big. Obviously, fortifications have kind of fallen to the wayside. Some are literally not even offered anymore, the faction specific ones. But with the new Astra Militarum one, I think that's going to be really popular. Obviously, we've seen a little bit more use coming out of like the Eldar Webway Gate and a couple others as of late. So hopefully they're going to be a little bit more fortification friendly. I think as a sales tactic, that's a good idea because right now fortifications are pretty much unused and irrelevant or very close to it. So if all of a sudden they can make fortifications good, that's a bunch of people that play Warhammer that are going to buy fortifications suddenly. So that seems like a good idea. Also, as far as like the Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights, stuff like that, makes sense as well. It's clear that everything they got away from in 8th edition, not wanting to people to soup and just take like core pure armies, they seem to be like now encouraging again. So clearly they want you to take like a detachment of demons or a knight along your forces as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I actually like the idea of Imperial Soup or Chaos Soup as long as it's balanced appropriately. It's not necessarily a good idea if you have somebody basically taking the best of 3 books, smashing them together into one army, and then going up against somebody else that's using a pure book without putting some kind of like stipulations or drawbacks to that. So hopefully they're balancing it accordingly. Free stuff is a big theme in the match play season. You don't even have to spend any command points to put your units in strategic reserves. Good for armies with ways to boost their strategic reserves, like Tau Commanders, Positional Relay, the Eldari Webway Gate, or Tunneling Tyrannid Trigon. Okay, so I like that. That's not all. Your free allied detachment is a great opportunity to add some diversity to your army. Yeah, so very interesting. Seems like they're kind of toning back the command point tax, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but also I'm not sure we want to go back to the days where everybody starts the game with like 12 to 15 command points either. So Battle Brothers, if your Arks of Omen detachment is an Imperium detachment, you can include one of the following as an allied detachment. 1 Agents of the Imperium Auxiliary Support or Patrol detachment. Okay, so you can have multiple detachments. one Imperial Knights Super Heavy Auxiliary Detachment containing one Freeblade unit and one Votann Patrol Detachment. Okay, that's very, very strange. And I only say that specifically because Games Workshop has went out of their way to classify the Votann as Xenos. So if you have an Imperial detachment now, it's okay to add in a certain Xenos detachment. I don't know. I think honestly the Votann should have fallen in like the greater Imperium scope of things. That's a very interesting move right there. And again, are we just going to end up with a scenario now where everybody's taking just a couple of busted units from a Votann army, chucking them in like every Imperial army, and it's just getting a little wild? Seems like already the situation we have with Chaos and Demons. So maybe doubling down on bad decisions is not the best idea. We'll see. If your Arks of Omen detachment is a Genestealer Cults detachment, you can include one Brood Brothers Patrol Auxiliary Support or Super Heavy Auxiliary Detachment as an allied detachment. I can't remember exactly what's in the Brood Brothers. I know it's like a bunch of Imperial Guard stuff, which is cool because you can basically put like a Baneblade or something in that. That's interesting. I'll have to touch up on that one. I don't know a ton about Genestealer Cult, honestly. If your Arks of Omen detachment is a Thousand Suns detachment, you can include one Legion's Demonica Patrol detachment that only contains units with the Tzeentch keyword as allied detachment. Okay, so basically, Thousand Suns, I mean, that doesn't seem like that changes much at all, because you can already take a patrol and just load it up with flamers. So I'm not sure that that's a big change or anything. And now a quick message from this week's sponsor. This video is sponsored by CMOgames.com, where you can get 15% off most Games Workshop pre-orders, and they go live right at midnight Saturday mornings. CMOgames.com offers free shipping on orders over $25 in the US 48, and most orders ship within 24 hours. CMOgames.com has been selling Games Workshop products online for more than 20 years, and customer service is their top priority. CMOgames.com carries the full line of Games Workshop products, including 40k, Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, warcry, paints, hobbies, and tools. Visit CMOgames.com using the affiliate link in the description below so they know you heard about CMOgames.com from Warhammer Man Studios. Now, back to the video. And it says just a few of the Battle Brothers options available. So definitely going to be some other stuff. The strangest for me is the fact that Votann is characterized as Xenos, but able to be a Battle Brother for Imperium. That, to me, very strange. Allies also don't cost any command points, but they come with a few caveats. Only certain factions and types of detachments can join your main Arks of Omen detachment as Warzone comrades. It's all laid out in the new section on Battle Brothers rules representing iconic partnerships from the 41st millennia. The CPU save will go to good use. You'll still need to pay for your warlord traits and relics, and there's now the third requisition stratagem. Many powerful leaders can only be taken once per detachment, and with only one Arks of Omen detachment available, okay, interesting, you'll be unable to take more. Fortunately, heroic support lets you double up for only one command point. Okay, so there's a lot there. So you don't have to spend nearly as many command points on your strategic reserves or on detachments, but you still have to pay for your warlord traits and relics, which is okay. It kind of balances out. You probably end up net positive unless you're like spamming relics and warlord traits. And then there's another requisition stratagem. Many powerful leaders can only be taken once per detachment, so that's like Tau Commanders or Hive Tyrants. And only one Arks of Omen detachment available. So I'm assuming that means you can only take one Arks of Omen detachment. You cannot take multiples of it. It's Arks of Omen plus Battle Brothers, basically. You'd be unable to take more. Fortunately, heroic support lets you double up for one command point. So if I'm not mistaken, that sounds... Oh, no, we don't even have to speculate. So heroic support, one command point, core stratagem, requisition stratagem. Use this stratagem before the battle when you are mustering your army. If a detachment ability, excluding Gene Sect, would limit the number of times you can include a unit in your detachment to one, you can include a maximum of 2 of that unit in that detachment instead. You can only use this stratagem once. So yeah, it basically is pay 1 command point, take a second Tau Commander or Hive Tyrant. No more wasting 2 or 3 command points on a whole extra detachment. I think overall, for most armies, 2,000 points, fairly competitive. You're probably going to be net saving, 3 to 6 command points. So need a larger reroll bubble, take 2 captains, a double dose of Scythe Slaughter. Recruit Typhus alongside a Lord of Contagion, Eldari looking to reignite the war in heaven. Show them who's boss with 2 Catan shards. Some other changes from last season remain in place too. Fortifications are easier to deploy, the CP regain is the same, and dedicated transpoints must start with a unit inside of them, fulfilling their intended role rather than gallivanting off on their own from the get-go. Several missions have been updated to provide new challenges for experienced commanders. In particular, the timing on when they score primary objectives has been tweaked, making for more even experience regardless of who won the role to go first. That's huge. That is definitely huge. Depending what exactly they changed, they don't actually even need to change the primary objectives. Just when it's scored makes a huge difference. So there's not some massive advantage now to going second. It's always been kind of like a struggle, like a tug of war between going first and going second. It was either like you alpha strike your opponent and destroy half their army, or you just sit back completely hidden, and then you have a massive advantage on late game objective scoring. Now it sounds like they're kind of balancing that so that it's good to go first, but also it's good to go second, hopefully. There's also a huge collection of new and revised secondary objectives to shake up the competitive scene. Along with universal objectives, there are specific goals for each faction, including the new leagues of Votann and World Eaters. Each of the iconic Space Marine chapters and Traitor Astartes legions also get an extra secondary objective of their own. For example, Salamanders score by withstanding enemy fire on critical objectives, while the Emperor's Children aim to display their martial excellence in every facet of war. So that's pretty cool. It sounds like basically they have created an extra secondary for all the different chapters for Chaos and Space Marines that are going to be a little more like thematic. So it's like, hey, you got this army that's supposed to do this thing, and now if you do the thing it's supposed to do, you can gain secondary points for that. So I really like that. So No Mercy, No Respite, the Promethean Creed progressive objective for Salamanders. In your first command phase, select one objective marker that is not within your deployment zone. At the end of each of your command phases, if you control the objective marker and a Salamander's core infantry unit within your army is within range of it, score 2 victory points. Each time an enemy unit is selected to shoot or fight, if you select a Salamander's infantry unit from your army that is within range of an objective marker as the target of one or more of its attacks, but it does not destroy that unit as a result of those attacks, score 1 victory point, to a maximum of 2 per turn. At the end of each player's turn, if one or more enemy units were destroyed by attacks made by Salamander's infantry units from your army that turn while the Salamander's infantry unit was within range of an objective marker, score 1 victory points. Score 2 VP instead if one or more models in any of those destroyed units were destroyed as a result of attacks made by flame or melta weapons this turn. So this sounds super thematic, but also good. There's half of the objective is, hey, be durable on an objective. And then the other half is like, hey, kill stuff, and bonuses if you kill stuff with the weapons you're supposed to be using on or near an objective. I really like it. That's great. It honestly is perfect. All right, and then Adorn the Canvas, Eclectic, progressive objective. So at the end of each turn, score 1 victory point for each of the following conditions you satisfy. And this is obviously Emperor's Children. You control more objective markers than your opponent. One or more enemy units was destroyed by ranged attack made by Emperor's Children unit from your army this turn. One or more enemy units was destroyed by melee attacks made by Emperor Children units from your army this turn. One or more enemy character units were destroyed by attacks made by Emperor's Children character units from your army this turn. So basically every turn you'll have an option at all 4 of these, and you basically need to be controlling more objectives, destroying stuff with shooting, destroying stuff with melee, and killing a character with one of your characters. So not quite as good, I don't think, but still pretty freaking awesome. Obviously, though, Salamanders right now are a terrible army, so they need a really good secondary, as where Emperor's Children are pretty freaking good. So maybe they don't need as good of a secondary. The big thing, too, will be the points changes as well. So what's more, a new balanced data slate and points update are both also arriving soon. And, of course, the studio will be discussing all the changes here on Warhammer Community. So interesting, check back early in the year. So the points updates will be free. Definitely interesting. Overall, I gotta say, I like it, guys. I think this is some definitely positive changes. We'll have to see how it all fleshes out. Obviously, we don't have the full rules right now. But from what we're seeing, I like it. It seems like they're really encouraging soup. They're going to give you back a couple of your command points that you were spending on unnecessary things previously. And also a rebalancing of primaries and additional secondaries, I think gives factions a more reliable way to get their full secondary score. Because right now there's a couple of armies, factions, whatever, that can basically just sit back, do nothing, and score max secondaries, and then everybody else has to try to like keep up with them, and that's not a good place to be. So if everybody else gets one more good secondary and it ups your choices, I think that's going to bring a lot more balance to the game. Because honestly, right now, the biggest balance, in my opinion, is in the secondary objectives. The issues there are literally what can stop an army from being good or terrible. So that's it for today's video. Pretty cool overall. Let me know what you think down below. Did I miss anything? Was there any like subtleties that you specifically could see affecting your army or opponent's armies that I didn't touch on? This is my first impression, so obviously we'll see how this develops. But looks super exciting. I am definitely pumped for 2023 and the Arks of Omen. Overall, I like it. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring this video. But that's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.